Welcome to the Thursday edition, section 1904, where we are back and residing in Loserville. Got a couple things to talk about from Wednesday's action in America's finest city as it relates to our sports teams. But I do want to start just by saying I do appreciate getting up in the morning, and all of us that are in media and all of us that have been active at some point in our lives on social media must always appreciate. Yesterday when I was promoting the Section 1904 podcast, I used a phrase that the Marlins are excellent house guests. Here's the link to today's Section 1904. This was Wednesday. We were talking about how the Marlins will just give you opportunities if you want. Yeah. All you got to do is play long enough, and the Marlins will let you hang around in a baseball game. I want to thank at Rokistan, who said, "Ooh boy, this aged like a stale fart." Thank you very much. Do appreciate that first thing in the morning. I don't know. I think scoring 8 runs in a game probably gives you a good opportunity to win a baseball game. But I will say that being the first exposure that I had to social media when I woke up this morning, just about 7 o'clock or so, I do appreciate that, Rokistan. Thank you very much. You did make me smile. Welcome in. John, how's it going over there in COVID Carlsbad?
It sucks over here in the COVID cabana. My wife and daughter are now down worse than I am. We've switched sides, which means that I'm getting better every day is being held back by all the stuff that I have to do to keep the whole house fed and clean and take care of the dog. So I'm feeling a little gassed today. I will say, just on the thing that you brought up there, I had not seen Sandy Alcantara pitch since he was like a Cy Young level pitcher. And he got on the mound, and I was like, first of all, talk about tall, dark, and handsome. Like, what a figure that guy strikes. But secondly, he gave up 6 earned runs in like 4 innings. Like, how much better of a guest can you be on the road? I don't know. I think this one is squarely on Kyle Hart, who's terrible, who I saw he lost the turtleneck. I thought maybe the turtleneck had been the thing that was holding him back. He did look a little bit more fierce and a little less like a suburban dad without the turtleneck. You got to see some rippling muscles under there. Still throws an 89-mile-an-hour fastball. I don't know if that's going to make it in 2025 Major League Baseball. Yeah,
probably has to give you 5 there. Probably has to give you 5. It seems like, and you'll have to forgive me because I was not as dialed in on this baseball game as I'm sure John was, and as I'm sure many of our listeners were. You'll understand I was preparing for like a 4-hour marathon of being on radio. I was on 760 yesterday, longer than I ever was when I actually worked there. I mean, it was just kind of crazy that I went on. Yeah. I went on with John Schaefer for a little while, just past 3 o'clock. Can I just say, as a quick aside, John Schaefer, what a guy. What a guy John Schaefer is. He invites me to come on in to the studio. Jim Russell's vacationing in Hawaii. And as soon as I sit down, he goes, "Hey, before we talk about anything, I want to say congratulations to you and John on Section 1904. I've been enjoying it. It's great content. We recommend everybody go out there, give it a listen, subscribe to it." He asked me to explain what our whole motivation was behind it. So I do want to say thank you to John for that. That was really great of him to do. But I chatted with him for about 30, 40 minutes. And then I did a 1-hour midweek show. We still have to do the midweek show, even if we have a midweek game.
Goodness.
I mean, who thought about that? Although I will say I get paid for both, so, whatever. But then we had a pregame show, Adrian and myself, and then we had the game, and then we do the halftime, and then we have the second half, and then we have the postgame show. So I sat down in a chair at about 3:15 yesterday, and I didn't get up till 8. I think we got off the air just about 8 o'clock. So, and that's on top of doing an hour here. So what you might hear over the span of however long it is that this podcast lasts, between John's COVID and between me having to do 5 grueling hours yesterday, 6 grueling hours of broadcasting, you're going to hear a lot of this. So, between John and me, we will do our best to mute our microphones, but occasionally you might get a in there as we both continue to just clear our throats for different reasons altogether, from one part of the counter to the other. And forgive me for this car that's now honking in the background that you can probably hear as well. But we'll try to get through it. And then, on top of that, my wife's out of town, left me with no coffee. So as I'm trying to make a cup of coffee so I can motivate myself to get ready for this podcast today, we have no coffee. Will Holder, where are you? I need to put out the Will Holder bat signal here in Imperial Beach so I can get a decent cup of coffee in this house. Other than that, John, our sports teams weren't very good. Our vocal cords are shredded. So let's do a podcast.
Yeah, you should treat the rest of today, since your wife is not around, like your Taylor Swift. I don't know if you know this. Taylor Swift, when she's on tour, she famously does not talk, basically until it's time for her performance. She's saving her vocal cords for her performance, especially when she's doing 5-6 hour long concerts. So when you're not in front of a microphone today, just, give those vocal cords a rest.
I did actually just order
Something for your vocal cords.
I did. I actually just ordered $22 worth of throat lozenges. That should
These guys right here.
Yeah, the Fisherman's Friend. I did.
The unofficial sponsor of this podcast.
I'm out of them. So I did just order a 38 count 6-pack of Fisherman's Friend original extra strong menthol throat lozenges, since I have to do play-by-play Saturday night between SDFC and Austin Football Club. So
that's in 2 days, Darren.
I do got to get. I know. I do have to get this up and running here at some point. So, we'll see how it goes. But they make all sorts of over-the-counter things, I suppose, that will help me get through this very, very troubling time. But yes, that's the situation here on the podcast. John, where do you want to start? What were we talking about? Padres? Padres first? Because I walked in. Oh, yeah, that's where I was. That's where I was going with this.
Right.
Then I got sidetracked with the whole John Schaefer thing. Again, isn't that cool from John? What a guy. So
he's in the section, by the way. I think he's a paid subscriber.
I think he is. I think that's great. I love John. I'm a fan of his. And
I love all Johns.
Yeah, all Johns. He's a J-O-N, though. Did you know
Except for
that?
John Rocker. John Rocker can get the fuck out of here.
The transportation secretary?
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
What a massive twat that guy is. God almighty.
Both of them.
Anyway, so not Schaefer, the road rules guy.
Yeah.
Afraid of mass transit. You're the transit secretary. Unbelievable. What a time to be alive. So I'm not dialed in is where I'm going with this. I got to the iHeart Studios and I sat down and Gavin Sheets hit a home run. And we talked about how Gavin Sheets was the story of the season for the Padres. And he is, I still think, right? I still think he's the story of the season.
He's the new Profar.
Yeah, he's got 11 jacks and that was dramatic and it was a moment. And then in the blink of an eye, I look up and the Padres are trailing in this game. And again, I'm not dialed, but I'm up to speed, I guess would be the way to say it. John, so I'm going to defer to you here. It seemed like it was a combination of players who didn't perform. You mentioned Kyle Hart, Wandy Peralta, Manny Machado with his MLB leading 10th error. What has happened to the Minister of Defense?
Yeah.
And also some decision making, I think, from Mike Schilt, who has brainwashed a lot of the Padres media to just fall in line with what it is and how it is that he explains some of his decision making on the rare occasion, I think, where you can rightfully question some of the decisions that were made there. So what stood out to you, not to go full post game mode here, but what stood out to you from the third game, the aging like a wet fart or stale fart game that we discussed yesterday? Losing a very winnable game to the Marlins, by the way, I think is also an important thing to factor into the conversation. That game was there for the taking, and instead of taking it, the Padres gave it away. Yeah,
the Machado error, major league leading error, as you put it, that's worrying. Just because we just keep seeing it, and like this was not a difficult play that Manny was trying to make. He literally lost focus. Like he looked at second, was preparing to throw to second, decided the right play was to go to first, made all those thoughts while he was transferring the ball from glove to hand, and just bobbled it away. That is not knowing where you're going with the ball. That's losing focus, et cetera, et cetera. Jason Adam was terrible. Schilt, look, someone in our Discord put it as Mike Schilt is a terrible gambler. The thing about being a terrible gambler is most of the time that just means you're unlucky. And he pulled out Kyle Hart, who had thrown, 50 pitches or something like that. He pulled out Kyle Hart and said, my bullpen's going to take me the rest of the way. And, if it's the first month of the season, sure, that works. That has worked several times back when Kyle Hart was the starting pitcher for the Padres. But this bullpen is tired and or returning to the mean, regressing to the mean. It's not great. Jason Adam was bad. Wandy Peralta came in, and he was Wandy Peralta. You can probably make some assumptions there. And like how he was warming up Robert Suarez to come in the bottom of the ninth, and then he didn't come in, and then he warmed him up again. Schilt was just all over the place. It seemed like having Kyle Hart as the pitcher really kind of threw off whatever his plan was for how he wanted to do this game. But yeah, it sucks.
Well, is the bullpen tired or not? Because it seems like it's a little bit contradictory to say, well, we've got to think about the long term when it comes to the bullpen here. But, we're also not going to let Kyle Hart get through the fifth inning.
Right.
Which, you can pin it on the player. Again, I'm not paying close attention to it. Maybe he was just throwing nothing but slop up there at that point. But you do have 4 innings against the Marlins here. And, you put yourself in a position where, the game is in a worst case scenario, the game is still totally up for grabs, right? And we've seen what it is that's happened late in these games against the Marlins over the first couple of games. So, maybe there's an argument to be made there that even though he is not good, maybe, it's on Hart or it's on the decision-making to let him at least try to get through that. I don't know. That's one of those,
the bigger question
pick
is
your
more
poison, I suppose, on that. But if you're so concerned about the bullpen, you get Suarez up and down and all that sort of stuff, and you don't bring him in there to face the righty in the 8th inning, and instead you're going to let Wandy Peralta do that sort of stuff with an off day today, it just seems like it's a little bit of mixed messaging for me.
Yeah, and the other thing that I left out here is who Kyle Hart was pulled for, which is David Morgan, who I think made his MLB debut like 2 days ago. David Morgan faced 4 batters. He gave up a home run to the first one, and he struck out the next 3. So obviously he has some stuff, right? But like when you've already given up, how many runs did they give up that inning? 5? When you've already given up 5 runs, there's 2 guys on base. I don't think you bring in the kid to clean up that got here 2 days ago. I mean, that's a high leverage spot. And like the Jesse and Grant were trying to say, when David Morgan made his debut, he was in a high leverage spot. No, he wasn't. And you know what he gave up when he came in was like a screaming line drive that got caught by an infielder. So it just seemed like a weird spot to bring in the kid like that. I would have rather bring in Wandy Peralta in that spot, like some sort of veteran who can, make a pitch and get out of it. And David Morgan proved that he's got stuff to strike people out at the major league level, but I think he's still got to figure out how to handle those big, high intensity moments. And that's, Gavin Sheets came back, gave him another lead. God, what a good story the Gavin Sheets thing is becoming. And yeah, it's, Manny kind of blew it at the end there. And that sucks. But like, this is partly on Schilt. It's partly on Hart. It's partly on Manny. Like, those are the 3 guys that I'd put it on. But also, like, most of the time when you're scoring 8 runs, you're going to have a good chance to win. And
I would agree.
They won the series.
They did win the series, but that's a winnable game, and that's one that would bug me heading into an off day as well. I don't know that I would just do the Kevin Acee daily newsletter thing where I just would chalk it up to that's baseball. I understand when you're around it all the time, you're going to kind of go with the flow. I think now that I've had an opportunity to zoom the lens out a little bit, that I'm not around it as much anymore, you could certainly, you can definitely recognize an echo chamber when you hear one. And, just the idea that like, what are you going to do? Bullpen was fatigued. You just brought it up. I mean, Robert Suarez, if he's going to pitch in the game, if you're going to pitch him in the game, then you probably have to bring him in to face, who was it? Ramirez, the right-hander. So, you probably have to face him there after Wandy walks the 9-hitter. Now, again, there's plenty of blame on the players. Like you said, I mean, Hart's probably got to be a little bit better. And, Peralta is what he is, but, you're bringing Peralta in there to do a job. You cannot walk the 9-hitter. But then when he does that sort of thing, the manager's got to go out there and say, well, if I'm going to use the guy, then I'm going to use the guy now, because this is where I feel like the game needs to be won instead of leaving it in the hands of Wandy Peralta. So, I think there are all those kind of things. And like you said, it's not just the 10 errors for Manny Machado, but it feels like a couple of them lately have come in situations where the balance of the game is right there. And I would love, and I'm going to make this request, and I hope that Dylan from Letters to AJ is listening to this, because, I would love his data-driven approach. One of the toughest things that I've learned to do, and I think people that work for baseball teams will tell you this as well, the metrics as they relate to defense are have been behind defensively than they have been for pitching and for offense.
For decades.
For decades, right? So, even recently, I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine who works in a baseball front office. He's like, yeah, we still have not perfected metrics as it relates to defense. And it could be argued that there's no perfect metric out there for offense or pitching either, but, it's more advanced there than it is when it comes to defense. But, you can look and you can say 10 errors. And, I even checked with a friend of mine this morning. I was like, do we still care about errors or not? It's like, yeah, I mean, error usually indicates you kind of fuck something up. So, it does still matter, but the flip side is if you're a rangy player, and Manny is I think, above average range-wise, sometimes if you're above average range-wise, you get into a little bit of trouble. You get punished because you get to balls that other players can't get to. So, that's the thing that you factor in. So, there's all sorts of ways of looking at this is what I'm getting at. But Manny's got a .930 fielding percentage, which is the worst of his career. And he's got 10 errors, which is leading Major League Baseball. And they've come in some pretty critical situations. So, I would love just for somebody to look a little bit at Manny, somebody who has a keen eye for this sort of stuff, whether it's Dylan from Letters to AJ or somebody else. And just tell me exactly like what it is that we're seeing here with Manny. Because, I don't think anybody's going to tell you he's been a good defender. But, there are some parts of it when it comes to, putouts, double play. He's leading baseball in double plays, and starting double plays. So, it's not like he's been a butcher. We've seen butchers. This isn't Will Myers playing third base.
Right.
It still is Manny Machado, and there are elements that look oftentimes like Manny Machado. John, it wasn't that long ago that I remember posting a still image of Manny Machado and saying, someday they're going to build a statue for this guy, and it should probably be him playing defense. But since then, it just, he's just not been good. He's not been he's not been Manny. He's not been the minister of defense. And, that was a big moment. That was a really, really big moment in the game. As much as people want to yell and scream about Wandy Peralta, rightfully, or Kyle Hart, understandably, or even Mike Schilt, and I get it. Manny's right there in the middle of that as well. And you kind of look, you're just like, what is happening here? This isn't Manny. This isn't the 4-time Gold Glove winner, I think, 3, 4, whatever it is. This isn't, this doesn't look like him. And given the amount of chances that he's had. So, I don't know. That's a bad taste heading into an off day there. Because that was a winnable game. And it just, it was put in the hands of weirdos that you don't really want to trust with a game like that, even when you've won the first 2 games of the series.
I totally agree with everything you said. 2 quick things. One, I remember when we did talk to Dylan from Letters to AJ, and we asked him about, is there any defensive metric that you like? And he said the best one out there, the one that captures defensive value the best for him, was outs above average. And here's Manny's outs above average since 2020. 2020 was 4. 2021 is 3. 2022 is 9. 2023 is 12. So you're starting to get an idea. Like a really good player is on the positive end. Maybe even you hit double digits if you're like a Gold Glove level defensive player. His OAA last year was -1. And his OAA this year so far is -3. It's not the worst year he's ever posted defensively. That actually would be 2019, his first year with the Padres. He was a -7. But it's definitely, if at least I'm looking at a stat that tries to capture defensive value, and I'm looking at it over Manny's entire career. And what it is telling me is this is one of the worst defensive seasons that Manny has had so far. Doesn't mean he can't turn it around. Doesn't mean the rest of the year he can't figure it out and be the Gold Glove level third baseman that we're used to. But again, it's a worrying sign. The other thing about, the game being in the hands of weirdos, I think is how you phrased it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't have a better word ready.
It's okay. I knew what you meant, like not the star players, right? Like the guys on the fringes are the ones affecting the win and loss of this game. I will say, Gavin Sheets gives them a lead in the 8th inning, 7th inning with a home run. In the 8th inning, the Marlins throw up this pitcher, Henriquez. I don't know if you've seen this guy pitch. He is so small, and his pitches move so much that he would be like Pedro freaking Martinez if he could just throw a strike. And yet he walked nobody. He struck out Jake Cronenworth, he struck out Tyler Wade, and he got Diaz grounding out to third. In the 9th, you're like, okay, Padres are down 2 runs, but Here comes Tatis. Here comes Arise. Here comes Machado. Here comes Jackson Merrill. Here comes the Hart. Like, literally, you are hoping going into the ninth inning that this is where it starts. It starts at the top of your lineup with your best hitter. Tatis flied out. Arise grounded out. Machado fouled out. And it was just nothing. There was 2 innings where they were behind. They had some of their best hitters up there going up against pitchers who are not superstar pitchers, and one guy who really looked like was struggling to throw strikes but was striking guys out anyway. And you got nothing for it. 0 hits, 0 men on base. So it could have been in the hands of Tatis and Arise and Machado at the end there. They just couldn't do anything against the Marlins bullpen that I don't think is supposed to be that good.
Well, I don't think the Marlins are very good either. And what I don't need also is, hey, these Marlins are better than you thought they were at the end of a series, like what I read in the Padres Daily today. I understand what it comes when you're a beat reporter. I understand it. I haven't done it, but I've been around it long enough to understand, sometimes you got to carry a little bit of water. But, I think you and I and others can say that one, it's rare that a regular season game actually will serve as an irritant or whatever when it comes to the good or the bad of a regular season. A third of the way through this thing, a third, are you kidding?
Especially when the series is already over.
But, rare is the occasion where I think one does get under your skin and like it feels like this is one that I understand it getting under somebody's skin because it was there. It was there for the taking. It was winnable. And, instead what we get is a bunch of mumbo jumbo about playing the long game, and like,
what?
I don't know. Like, where's the evidence to suggest that throwing Robert Suarez yesterday means that he's going to be an inferior pitcher sometime in September? I don't know. Can you present that to me before you just say it and I'm supposed to believe it?
I went to, sometimes I like to go to Padres.com after a loss because, it's Padres.com, right? They try and find ways to, soften a loss. And if I remember correctly, the way in which they softened this one was basically to say, Kyle Hart should have never been pitching. This is because Michael King's shoulder. If not for Michael King's shoulder, Kyle Hart's not pitching. If Kyle Hart's not pitching, the Padres starting pitching is better. You don't have to tap into the David Morgans in the 5th inning, and the Padres would have ended up winning, which is probably true. But you got to adjust whenever there's an injury.
All right. Well, good news is the Pirates are coming to town, and they're brutal. So it's another opportunity in a weekend to go ahead and get right against a 21-36 team in the Pittsburgh Pirates, who I think are actually worse than the Miami Marlins.
Probably.
So, but that's all I got on the Padres. As I said, I really wasn't as dialed into it. I think the defensive stuff with Manny is something that, should be discussed, and it's fair to discuss it. And off day today and back at it tomorrow, heading into the weekend against the Pirates. You going to go to any of these games, or are you still not checked out medically?
I mean, I tested myself again yesterday and I was still positive. I will probably check myself again today. I'm pretty sure we shouldn't go to Mason Ale Works tomorrow. So I'm probably going to try and spend as much of the weekend at home resting as possible. So
especially if you're the healthiest person amongst the three, that means the responsibility's on your shoulders
100%.
To go answer whenever it is that Rebecca rings the bell. And you have to go show up there with your silver platter tray and your cup of tea and the crumpets and everything else that you're going to do since you infected your whole house with COVID.
Actually, it's a good point. My wife can text me, but my daughter, I should probably find her a bell.
Text?
Yeah.
You're still doing that? What are you worried about now? You're in the clear, pal.
No. Like if I'm on another floor or something,
gotcha.
I'm up here. She's downstairs. She'll send me a text like, "Hey, can you bring me some tissues or something like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Come downstairs." I'm not always up here, but if I'm far enough away that I can't hear her voice, but my daughter will just have to get up and walk and find me. But maybe she probably has a bell somewhere. I can get her. She can bring a bell, and Daddy will appear.
Well, I mentioned John Schaefer gave us a nice plug yesterday on San Diego Sports 760. And if this is your first exposure to Section 1904, well, we do appreciate you checking it out. You might be, there is an opportunity for people here to to sample it. You get to take a test drive here before you decide whether or not you want to subscribe to it. But if you do subscribe, not only do you get essentially a daily podcast between John and myself, or one or the other. If one person is doing some vacationing, or one person is going to do an interview that might appeal more to one side of this dynamic than the other side of the dynamic, then all of this content is available for you. Section 1904 is also a destination. You get access to the Discord. If you don't know what that is, we'll give you a quick explanation that you can join the community online and you can have conversations about the Padres or SDFC, or about football in general, or about SDSU, or myriad other subjects, including local beer and wine and food and travel. So you do get access there. You get access delivered every single day. Front row seat. One of the first things now, this has become habit forming for me. Front row seat is something that John gets up every morning, puts together. Lots of links to local stories and national stories and sometimes international stories that he thinks might be of great appeal to you. All sorts of bonus content there, but you get the front row seat delivered to you each and every day just by becoming a member of the Section 1904 community for as low as $5 per month. So if anybody else is signed up or become aware of this, because John Schaefer mentioned it yesterday during the John and Jim program, well, welcome, and we hope that you'll stick around, and we hope that you will subscribe. Plus, John, every once in a while, will write like 1,500 words on Gavin Sheets' swing. Sometimes. Which, I don't know if his conclusions are right or wrong, but he's taking the time to do it. And it's interesting. And it's the kind of stuff that you're just not going to get anywhere else. What motivated you to do that, by the way?
I like answering questions in my head. And I was kind of watching Gavin Sheets. And I'm like, look, this guy's career high for home runs is 15. He's on pace for over 30. And I was like, what is going on here? And I'm a person who has never watched Gavin Sheets before this season. So I was like, something has to have changed. Like, baseball players don't just magically add power their sixth season in the majors without changing something. And so I started digging into the StatCast and everything. And finally I was like, wait, hold on. They have information about where his feet are in the box and where his bat makes connection with the ball, and all of those things had changed dramatically from last year to this year. So I started digging into that and then doing a little film breakdown. Someone actually replied to me on social media, was like, yeah, he's talked about like he changed his swing in the offseason with help from his dad. That's because I was like, I don't know who convinced him to do this, but someone convinced him to make a change to his swing. So yeah, a lot of times I'm just answering questions that are in my head that I would like answers to.
All right. Well, we've got a couple of parents who have helped their children out. Fernando Tatis and Gavin Sheets. Maybe one of these guys will be the future hitting coach of the Padres. We'll see. I saw that Fernando, by the way, went back, 0 for 4, 0 for 5. So for all the stories about how he had burst out of his slump with that Petco porch home run the other night, I guess we're maybe jumping the gun a little bit on that. I don't know.
I don't want to pretend like I'm the hitting expert. I think our buddy Dylan pointed out some of this on Letters to AJ, but Tatis's big problem right now is the pitchers have figured out, even with the step and everything changing from what it was previously, if you throw a breaking ball that's in the zone and then drops out of it, he's going to swing at it when it's in the zone, and he's probably going to miss it or ground out once it breaks. He has to figure out a way to identify those sooner and not swing at them. That's what's killing him right now, I think.
All right. Well, it is a sport of adjustments. You may have heard that a time or two over your fandom. I mentioned I was focused on something other than Padres yesterday, and that was the Seattle Sounders and San Diego Football Club. It was a midweek match. This is the second time SDFC, second time MLS has scheduled midweek matches. The first time it was a little bit more convenient, not going to say easier, although I think that would probably apply as well. But it was more convenient because the match was at Snapdragon Stadium 2 Wednesdays ago, I guess 3 Wednesdays ago now. This time after an emotional game and a dramatic game against LA Galaxy and a physical game against LA Galaxy on Saturday, they had to pack up. They had to fly to Seattle, which is not the worst road trip ever, and play against the Seattle Sounders at 5:30 for some reason. I'm still unclear why that match kicked off at 5:30.
Didn't make any sense.
2 hours makes the difference. There were other games that were being played at 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
I don't know why this one wasn't.
All the Pacific time zone games were at 7:30 except for this one, which was at 5:30.
Don't really understand it. It's not like you're dealing with television windows because everything's on Apple TV Plus, but the game ends up finishing 1-0 in favor of Seattle Sounders. Called the game with Adrian Garcia Marquez. It was a 58th minute goal from Jesus Ferreira, who scored his first goal with Seattle Sounders. I can explain the significance of that over the span of the next couple of minutes that we'll spend here on SDFC, but it is a loss, first loss in the month of May. SDFC will return home Saturday night against Austin Football Club. Thought it was a bit of a frustrating night. John and I haven't talked about this before we started rolling. He told me that he had opinions, so I'm kind of curious to hear what his opinions are, having done the game and having gotten up this morning and having my curiosity lead me to start digging around, going through different rabbit holes, trying to look up different stuff. But ultimately, there's a lot of statistics that favor SDFC in the match. But the one statistic that ultimately matters is the statistic who puts the ball in the net more than the other team, and that was Seattle Sounders by the score of 1-0. We said it on the air that I thought the difference in the game was Stephen Fry, who is the legendary goalkeeper for Seattle Sounders. I have a bunch of numbers that I can say if you don't know who Stephen Fry is, or if you're new to MLS, I can tell you a lot about him. This is a player who has played the 4th most minutes in Major League Soccer history. He's got almost 1,000 regular season saves. He's won everything as the goalkeeper of Seattle Sounders. 7 saves. Not many of them were the most difficult, but some of them were really difficult. Some of them were really, really difficult saves that only elite goalkeepers will make. And to me, he was the difference in the game. And they was rotated. Alex Mighton started on the left. Lozano started on the bench. Oni Valakari started in the middle. Anibal Godoy started on the bench. Ale Alvarado started on the right side of the midfield. Everything else, I think, was pretty much the same. But a frustrating night. I thought there were opportunities. I thought with some better finishing, especially in the first half of the match, SDFC, if it gets a lead, I think that goals lead to more goals. That's one of the things that we've learned with SDFC. Sometimes you open up the floodgates and they score 2, they score 3. It just wasn't meant to be, and they couldn't get the ball past Stephen Fry last night, and you know, he was the difference maker for me.
All right. This is great. I almost texted you my thoughts last night, and I was like, no, I want to save these for the podcast. Number 1, Jesus Ferreira, is that his name? The guy who
Jesus
scored?
Ferreira.
What a fucking goal.
Yeah.
Like, can we give him credit? What a the first touch was so good. Not only did he stop it on a dime, but he put it behind himself so that, cause knowing that the defender was going to curl around him to his right side, he put it behind himself to his left so that he could come back to it and kick it in the goal. Just a brilliant, beautiful piece of offensive soccer. And I needed to say that.
Can I jump in on this real quick?
Yeah, no, please.
Or do you want me to wait until after?
No, I'd love to talk about that goal.
Only because this is what I got up and I looked up this morning. So, you know, here's the thing about Jesus Ferreira. This is his first season with Seattle Sounders, and it's been really frustrating. He hasn't scored a goal in 16 or 17 games, whatever it's been, because they played a bunch of MLS games, and they also played CONCACAF Champions Cup. So they've played a bunch of games already, and he hasn't scored. And everybody in Seattle's like, what are we doing? What did we trade for this guy for? I don't understand it. I don't see it. What's the story here? Couple of things. Number 1, if you look, and I don't know how many people will actually take the time to do this, and I don't know what they did show on Apple, but I was made aware of this after the game from somebody who's at it, that if you look at the wide picture shot, the camera shot that Apple TV had, there are 2 Sounders players who are ready to check into the game. One of them was going to replace Jesus Ferreira. And on that play, Jesus Ferreira scores, and he ends up staying in the game for about 10 more minutes. Yeah. But one of the players that was about to check in at the next stoppage of play was going to replace Jesus Ferreira because they thought, okay, we don't really know what's happening here with him. Wow. So we're going to see if there's another option, try to get a different attacking player out there on the field. So he was that close to coming up. If that ball goes out of play, Jesus Ferreira is coming out of the game. So that's number 1. Number 2, Ferreira's been a pretty prolific goal scorer in his career. This is an amazing stat for me. He started with FC Dallas. And, you know, last night was his 54th MLS goal. He's 24 years old. 54 MLS goals. He's 24
years old.
The only player who got to 50 goals faster in Major League Soccer is Landon Donovan. I mean, listen, you can say what you want about MLS versus all these other leagues. That's fine. But the only player to have gotten to 50 goals faster or at a younger age than Jesus Ferreira is Landon Donovan. That's number 2. And the other thing, John, when you talked about the quality of the goal, he's a right-footed kicker. And the fact that he spun that around on his left is why you saw McVay go a little bit past Ferreira. Right. They thought he was going to kick it right, go onto the near post, and instead he turned it around. He wheeled around, does a 360, puts the ball in off his left foot. That was, out of his 54 goals, that was only the 10th time he scored with his left. So the scouting report, which Mikey Varis would know because he was there with FC Dallas.
Yeah.
He was there with him back in the day. He would have known Ferreira prefers to go to the right. And that's why McVay kind of overcommits, and CJ's on the right side. They think he's going near post, and instead, I'm so glad that you brought this up because it's exactly what I got up this morning and looked at. He spins it around, he puts it in there on his left, and it's just a great, great goal from a guy who was seconds away from being subbed out after a really, really bad start. So I can recognize that Jesus Ferreira, who's played for the U.S. men's national team, really needed it. I hate that it comes against SDFC, but credit where it's due. That was a class goal from Ferreira.
I just have to say, for anyone who watched this game, I assumed, because I saw I'm listening to the announcers saying the same things you're saying, like, oh, it's been such a struggle for him in Seattle, and he hasn't been able to get on the board, and the fans are starting to worry because they gave up so much for him. I assumed he was 35, Darren. 20. He looks 35. He does not look like a kid. He looks like a weathered man, and he's got the weird mullet thing that makes him look even older. You said 24. That was the most shocking thing there. That was beautiful. 2 more things. One, I thought that this was the most mistakes I have seen SDFC make in a game. Even like the Charlotte game, everything like that. Some of those games, you're beaten by good players making good plays. The Ferreira one, they were beaten by good players making good plays. They made so many mistakes in this game, especially in the defensive third. Dos Santos had 3 just brain fart plays, some of which he was able to save and keep from turning into something, and same with the defensive line. But they were just making mistakes. And I felt like the reason for that was this felt like a different level of play. Especially from the first matchup with Seattle to this one, this felt like Seattle going, all right, you want to be a big boy? We're going to treat you like a big boy. We're going to play big boy soccer. And they were playing fast, hard, smart. And it just felt like a different level of soccer that SDFC was like, whoa, hold on. What? We can do this, but I don't know if we can do this for 90 minutes, right? The last thing was, damn it, I forgot it. Oh, this is what I almost texted you last night. I can't remember the last time, it maybe is never, that I've seen a soccer match where the refs just went yeah, fuck it. There are no penalties anymore. There's no more fouls. Just tackle each other, whatever.
You're on your own, everybody.
There was that play where Dos Santos went and he, again, a mistake. He caught the ball with his foot on the line, which was a big no-no. And the second he realized it, he drops the ball. Oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. Mm-hmm. And the crowd's freaking out.
Right, they thought that he handled it outside of the box, right?
Yeah, they're yelling, that's a handball, it's a handball, it's a handball. It doesn't get called. And then, literally 3 seconds later, Chuky's got a good run into the box on the other side of the field, and one of the Seattle players just tackles him. Like a football shoulder to the midsection tackle. They both go flying down to the ground. Everyone on the field turns and looks at the ref, who does nothing. And the announcers on Apple TV go, I guess it's fair now. It was basically okay, you got one and now we'll give one to you on the other side. But there was so many plays where there was huge physical contact and everyone would look at the ref and the ref would just be like, no, just keep playing. The ref was bothered by the idea of calling any sort of foul. It was weird. It was weird, but it was definitely it almost felt like what I imagined playoff soccer to feel like. It was just physical, high energy. everything moving fast, skill everywhere. And yeah, I'm not going to say SDFC wasn't ready for it, but I thought it was a very evenly matched game. And I thought SDFC, as per usual, is kind of... They were saying this a lot on the Apple TV broadcast. I didn't check who the commentators were. I probably should have. But they kept saying, like, man, SDFC feels like they're 1-9 away from... like one striker, one more real good striker away from being the most dangerous team in soccer. They were like, you can see how often they have the ball and how often they get it into the attacking third, and then it just seems to die. And they're like, they just need one person to like be the fear in the face of the goalie in that last final third, which, you know, they're always hoping it's going to be Chucky, and it is sometimes. But anyway, those are all my thoughts from the game. Would you like to tear them apart?
I'm looking at the game notes. The Apple TV broadcasters, Keith Costigan and Maurice Adu. That was the team actually that was here over the weekend for Apple TV Plus. If you watch it on Fox, you got a different crew. This is such a bizarre thing, by the way. So the game was broadcast on Fox and it was simulcast on Apple TV Plus over the weekend.
Yeah.
The Fox announcers, I think, were in a studio in Tampa, and the Apple TV announcers were actually at Snapdragon Stadium. I mean, it's just a very weird dynamic. I don't know. Anyhow, that's who was on the call. So this is the second consecutive match. Following up on that note, when they say that they're a number 9 away from being one of the more dangerous attacking teams in the sport, and they already are one of the higher scoring teams, 4th or 5th in the league at this point. Haven't looked it up since all the games were on last night. You know, it sounds like Marcus Ingvardson's going to be back. He plays number 9. So, you know, this is exactly what they need.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know it wasn't a great start for Marcus over the first couple of games, but now with the knowledge of how MLS plays, you know, I think it's going to help you if he gets back here this week, or if he gets back here, you know, sometime over the, you know, maybe they give him the break to get back. I'm not sure. You know, SDFC's got a couple of weeks here where they don't have any actual league matches. They have the friendly against Club America, but that's it. So, you know, it sounds like Marcus is really, really close, and, you know, we'll be out there tomorrow. And I would expect if he's ready to go, Mikey's going to tell us that he's going to be ready to go. But he is a number 9, and he's a starting number 9. And they built a lot of these designs around Marcus Ingvardsson being in the middle of the front line. So hopefully that is something that we see as soon as this weekend. You know, I think Stephen Fry said some of these shots, you know, they didn't have the highest XG. But the one that he makes, the one save that he makes is that deflection in the second half. I want to say it was Milan Olaski.
Yes, it
and
was.
he puts a shot on target, and he's going for the left side of the goal. And it takes a deflection off one of the Sounders players, I think. And the ball goes spinning oddly up in the air, and now it's going towards the right side. And Stephen Fry is in goal, and he's diving to his left, and he just kicks his left leg out enough as his body is taking him in a different direction, and he just gets his foot on it, which, you know, that ball should be in the back of the net. Yeah. And then it's 1-1, and who knows how the rest of the game plays out. SDFC has scored a bunch of goals here in stoppage time, 6 goals in stoppage time, 4 at the end of the game, 2 at the end of the first half. So, you know, there is an opportunity there, but, you know, Stephen Fry is, you know, he's just a, you know, here's some of the things I couldn't get to on the broadcast. 38,000 minutes in Major League Soccer, 4th all time. 404 appearances for Seattle. That's ridiculous. He had 7 saves last night, so that's 993 regular season saves in his career. You know, I mean, this is a guy that's got a 1 goal against average. Seattle plays great at home. They're on an 11-match unbeaten streak at home. The turf, you know, that sort of stuff. I thought there was some heavy touches in the match. You mentioned some of the play, some of the mistakes. You know, I was surprised to see that Patty McNair got as high a rating on some of the rating services as he did. I thought Patty, you know, was he had an opportunity in front of goal, but it was with the left foot, not with the right. Not a goal scorer.
Patty was doing a lot of yelling at himself. He was yelling at himself a lot.
Seemed like it was tough for Patty on short rest. So, you know, I can live with it. You know, I do think I can live with it, especially given that, you know, the first half, the opportunities were there. You know, Mighton probably had the best chance.
No,
you know, he actually got a shot on target, which is, you know, not something that he's done a lot. But, you know,
can we talk about the Alvarado shot?
Yeah, I thought the Alvarado shot. I was happy to see Ale take that shot. You know, I feel like he's. I thought he played pretty well, actually.
Me too.
You know, I thought
he was a defender.
He's been a defensive midfielder type, but you know, here's a guy who's not played a lot. You know, that was only his 3rd start, and he played 4 minutes against Colorado. He didn't play against Galaxy. So he hasn't played a ton. So for him to get in there, I thought was I was curious to see how he was going to play, and I thought he actually played pretty well.
I thought he played well.
I thought he held it down, and I thought he had a shot opportunity early on that he passed, and then later on he took a shot, and it had a little bit of pace to it. I think a goalie like Stephen Fry's going to make that save. You got to do something. You got to do something better against Stephen Fry, and if you're going to get it past him, especially in Seattle, and a game that they had to have because they're right in the middle now where their schedule is a joke. Their schedule is a total joke. So they have, I think they have Vancouver or Minnesota coming up this weekend, and then they're in this FIFA Club World Cup coming up in a couple of weeks where they're going to be playing PSG and Atletico Madrid and Botafogo. They're going to be playing now they get to play them in Seattle, so great. But their schedule, they're in the middle of, I don't remember the order, of SDFC, Minnesota, Vancouver, and then they go right into the FIFA Club World Cup. So they've got a lot of soccer here for a club that wins a ton. That again, I think we said it yesterday. There's an aura to Seattle. To me, I still think that there's a little bit of an aura to the Seattle Sounders since they've been in the league. It's a club that I've definitely paid attention to, not having paid attention to a lot of the MLS clubs. But, it is a team that I've paid a lot of attention to. They win a lot. They expect to win. They expect to do big things. They're a big club. And, playing at Seattle it's a different experience, even on a weeknight. Crowd sounded like it was pretty into it from what we could tell. Again, I can live with it because it's not like it was, it wasn't the disaster of Charlotte.
Yeah.
There were opportunities there and you had to rotate. We talked a little bit about saving players with the Padres, and I'm sure it'll sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but recovery, playing 3 soccer matches in a week, it's hard, and I think they do a lot of work just to monitor recovery times and things like that, and I'm sure they do it in both sports. But they had a plan for Chucky, and that was to get him in there in the second half. I thought Dreyer had a really quiet game, and Dreyer probably needs a little bit of help if you're going to have Chucky out. So
yeah.
It probably needs a little bit of help, and you kind of look around and you go, well, where's it going to come from here? Like who is it going to be?
Hey, wait, I have a question about that. So Chucky didn't start, but he played. Did he come in the second half, like right at halftime?
Right at halftime.
He was 45 minutes.
Yep.
Is that?
That had to have been by design, in my opinion.
So that was my question. Is that by design of Chucky, we're going to play you half the game? Or is that they got to halftime and they were like, man, the offense just really needs a shot in the arm. Like, sorry, Chucky, we know we said like 20 minutes tops, but we need you to do like 45 plus.
Yeah, I'm going to guess it's the former, not the latter.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to guess that. I don't know that that's okay. Alex, hey, you had your 45 minutes here. It's time for somebody else. Alex is, he had a good look at it. He took a good rip, and like I said, he got it on target, which is, not been something. He's taking shots. He does some things. He's got some speed. He's got a little bit of pace. There's a stat called take-ons. He's willing to take on defenders and try to dribble past them to create a shot. So, he's got some things that you like there, but in terms of being a goal scorer that other teams are going to fear, it feels like that isn't there with Alex Mighton. So
I also just don't think, like, I was about to be like, yeah, and like, I would love to see, if we're not seeing a lot of Tommy Angel anymore, and I
don't
liked
know what's
him.
going on there either.
I think he's losing. I think he's losing ground to Olaski because Olaski came in, it was like goal, and now they're like, hey, we need a goal, bring in Olaski. But I would be okay if they gave Angel like a start instead of Mighton here or there. But then I'm also thinking about it like, I don't think there's any roster change here that would have changed the fact that it's like they're evenly matched teams. Seattle's a little bit more seasoned, and they're at home. They're likely to win an even match.
And the other thing, we talked about it on the post-game show, I think one of the things, although, certainly you can bark about small sample sizes, is, one of the things I think is kind of clear. It's hard to beat a team twice in this sport.
Yeah.
And, if you want to say that's parity or whatever, I don't like that word. To me, it's too easy to say that parity is mediocrity. So I don't like using that word. But, when you think about it, when you think about the games that you played or the teams that you played twice, so you beat Galaxy twice, right? So that's a win to start the season, and it's a win on Saturday. St. Louis, it was a draw, and then you win there. Colorado, it was a loss there and a win here. Real Salt Lake, it was a win there, it was a loss here. So, it seems like it's hard to, it just seems like early on, one of the things that I'm learning about this league is it's hard. It's hard to beat a team twice. Now, maybe that's good news because it's Austin coming to town, and Austin won 2-1.
Yeah.
A game that SDFC didn't have Patty McNair and didn't have Anibal Godoy. They were away on international duty. So this is the final game of May. Being able to close it up, send off your 4 players off to international duty on a high note, and being able to win at Snapdragon Stadium when you're not playing another MLS match. You have the Club America match, but not playing another MLS match for a couple of weeks. It seems like it's a great opportunity. And if you get Marcus back, that I don't know that he can start. I'm not sure, but I feel okay about that as well. The other thing we talked about too is, and this is like a shocking thing to me. You are now MLS All-Star voting is now open, John. So if you want to spend the rest of your day with your sick family online voting for your favorite SDFC players, you can do that. Listen to this. This is the way that it's going to be MLS All-Stars versus Liga MX All-Stars. It's going to be in Austin, Q2 Stadium in July. So, pack a couple of extra shirts. This is the way the rosters are selected in Major League Soccer. Are you ready for this? No. Have you had any exposure to this?
I only know that they when they do the All-Star game, it's not like East versus West. It's like MLS All-Stars versus something. Because right. I think there was a time where it was like MLS All-Stars versus like Tottenham. Like they were bringing like an EPL team. I thought that was fun. I thought that was a fun way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean, since now, business is tying MLS to Liga MX.
Yeah.
It feels like you're trying to, get as many manufactured contests between the two sides as possible.
Sure.
So this is the way the rosters are selected. And this is, again, I had the chuckle. So you have a roster of 26 players, okay? 26 MLS All-Stars, which doesn't sound like a lot, but...
No.
12 will be voted in by the fan votes.
Sure.
So you can go online. Let me be the good company man that I am. Go to MLSsoccer.com and vote.
Why 12?
12 players will be selected by the manager of the MLS All-Star team. The manager of the MLS All-Star team is Nico Esteves. Who is that? That is the manager of Austin FC.
Okay.
The host city and stadium for the MLS All-Star game.
Okay.
So it's not based on merit. It's based on this guy manages in this place. So if this game were at Snapdragon Stadium, Mikey Varas would be the head coach of the MLS All-Star team.
Sure.
12 players get selected by the head coach. So that's 24, and then the commissioner selects 2. So that is 26 total. So I don't know why
the commissioner picks 2?
Yeah. That's just to make sure, just in case something happens and
just in
Messi
case
doesn't
Messi
get
wasn't in, yeah.
or I mean, that might be a good thing for Chucky. This is a league that has long wanted Irving Lozano in it. So, but the manager of the home team who just got there, it's his first season, he gets to select 12 of them. So, I'm not sure what my point is, but that's the way the MLS All-Star rosters are selected. So maybe an opportunity for somebody like Yeppe or whomever, Chris McVeigh, to go out and have themselves a match on Saturday right in front of the MLS All-Star coach, who hopefully will survive to this game. I'm not sure.
I hope that was part of the job interview process. Like, hey, would you be interested? It's 15 games into your first season. You get to manage the MLS All-Star team. Pop quiz for you, Darren. The attendance figures for Sounders at SDFC, are they higher or lower than the attendance figures of SDFC at Sounders in Seattle? We now have one game in each spot. One in Seattle, one in San Diego. Which one do you think had more attendance?
I'm going to guess it was the game that was here because it was a Saturday night and it was still early on in the season. I want to say it was maybe the second or third or fourth home match ever. So I'm going to say it was here.
Incorrect, but they're closer than you might think. That game in San Diego was 28,228. The game in Seattle was 30,041. So only off by, like less than 2,000. And considering Seattle's a market that used to fill a 60,000 seat stadium for their home games. This is the point I want to leave on, and then we can talk a little bit of basketball at the end. We are 2 months into SDFC existing, like as a real MLS team that's playing games. We're 2 months into that. And what we just said is they get as many people to their home games as the Seattle Sounders, a legendary team. They took the game at home against the Seattle Sounders 3-0, lost in Seattle 1-0, and played them even or better both times. So if you were 2 months ago to be like, hey, in 2 months, SDFC is going to be as good and as well supported, at least inside the stadium, as the Seattle Sounders, that would be about as big a victory as they could hope for. So I think this is all good stuff. Even if there are occasional losses and they feel bad, this has been an incredible 2-month run for them.
Yeah, and I have to remind myself, too, it's an expansion club that's only played 16 times ever. You're sitting there talking about, like, how Ale Alvarado had himself a game last night. You're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, they gave this guy the opportunity here. He hasn't had a ton, but he was ready. You know, he was ready for it. He was up for it. And I think Mikey even made some reference about that afterwards. He's like, I think the thing we proved is we can go out there and we can play our style. Do we want to finish these chances? Of course we want to finish these chances, but every once in a while, Mikey will sprinkle in, like, we're still learning here. We are still learning things here. We don't know everything that we need to know about the squad. We still have things that we have to learn. And, it'll be interesting to see what it is when Marcus comes back, because it felt like he had found a little bit of groove and, he had scored a little bit, looked a little bit more threatening. So, maybe sitting back and watching and seeing the physicality of the league, which takes a lot of foreign players by surprise. Maybe that'll be something that'll be good for him. So I was driving home last night, and the Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I had on 760 because I was listening to Schaefer on my way in, since I figured I was going to go on with him, and I wanted to find out what he was talking about. Maybe jump into something that he was chatting about. And he was talking about Miles Bird announcing that he's returning to SDSU, which, is really, really good news. I think yesterday, gun to our heads, I think you probably thought that was going to happen. I thought it was maybe 50-50. Maybe he could be influenced. All you got to do is hear it from one of these NBA teams that you're going to get selected, and it's like, I got to go. But he's coming back, and that's a squad. That is a squad for SDSU. They do more with less than just about anybody that I'm aware of in the country. We'll save that for a different show. Yeah. But I had it on, and they were talking, and it was a guy, and like the talk radio guys, God, this is so fucking annoying. Like, listen, it's going to be Oklahoma City and Indiana. Okay, yeah. Like I can admit that the Knicks are going to lose to a better team. And would I love to see the Knicks in the finals? Absolutely. Do I think the Knicks are a great story? Do I think it's compelling on a national level? I do. Not because they're from New York. The Nets are from New York. Nobody fucking cares. Yeah. So the Knicks are from New York, but it's because it's a dog shit franchise that always loses everything. And their fans still show up, and they have a horrible owner. And that's what makes it a compelling story, not because it's from New York. There are lots of teams from big markets that, frankly, don't play on a national level. Nobody gives a shit about the Nets. Nobody cares if the Clippers go to the NBA Finals. I know you're struggling with your potential Clipper fandom. Nobody cares if the White Sox go to the World Series. So, the whole big market thing is a little bit off. Yeah. Now, that being said, a lot of this, I think, and a lot of the anger is directed at Stephen A. Smith. Because Stephen A. Smith says things like, oh, man, nobody, and a lot of these national types and a lot of these local types are going to say things like, oh, great, Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. Two small markets. Who gives a shit? And you're like, yo, shut up. Like that is a really, objectively, John, a really, really good NBA Finals. And this is an opportunity to sell this league and to sell these two, not these two cities. You don't have to sell Oklahoma City to anybody. Who gives a shit if you ever go to Oklahoma City? Right. This isn't, you don't have to go to Indianapolis. It's a rat hole. I grant you that. I've been there a bunch of times. It's not the worst, but you know what I'm saying. Like I have no plans to ever go there again. If I have to be there, you make the most of it. I've been there for the NBA Finals. I've been there for the Final Four. I've been there for a Super Bowl. I've been there more than I ever thought when I was growing up that I would be there. And it's okay. You can make it happen for a couple of days. If you're a national media type and you'd rather go to a place like Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or wherever, or Miami or one of these cities where you can go out and party and get drunk and do all those things. But, in terms of being able to sell the actual sport, this is such a great opportunity, in my opinion, for a league that you don't have to listen to Clay Travis. You don't have to listen to all these talk radio dipshits who are going to talk about how low the television ratings are, even though they don't know anything about television ratings. Having worked in that space for decades, I can tell you people just talk about television ratings and they have no fucking clue what they actually mean or what the impact is. And you're not marketing people and you're not advertising people. So why do you even care about this sort of stuff? But in terms of being able to sell young players, young teams that actually might be around for a couple of years too, especially Oklahoma City, I think it's a great opportunity for the league, which is secure in its television rights, to say, this is a great finals matchup. Will they do that? I don't know. Will a bunch of the NBA media types be belly aching about this matchup because they got to go to places that they don't like to go? Probably. But to me, this is a great opportunity for the NBA to sell itself. And if you got to deal with stuff on a national level, you're an international sport. You don't have to worry about everybody traveling into these two non-destination cities. But I think it's just a great opportunity to sell some of your young stars. It's such an opportunity for the NBA. Should it play out, and I hope the Knicks take this at least another game. I don't have high hopes, John. I don't. But I do. I'm already dreading, though, the conversation that's going to exist about Oklahoma City and Indianapolis as cities and as markets, and this as a television product, even though the conference finals have let us down and there's not a ton of traction to it, and it's going to be a full week off if this series in the East does end tonight. But brutal. What an opportunity I think this is to sell some of your younger stars to a fan base and to a potential audience that I think would be interested in learning a little bit more about them, but I might be wrong.
No, everything you said is dead on. And I think this is going to end up being like the pivot point for the league in which it becomes Adam Silver's NBA, right? Because David Stern was all about like, we're all about marketing. We want stars and we want to market those big stars, and that's what's going to bring people in.
You remember his famous line, "What is your dream NBA Finals matchup?" And he said, "The Lakers versus the Lakers." Yeah. That was David Stern, the former commissioner of the league. Yes. True story.
And Adam Silver has gone in the other direction. Adam Silver believes in parity because Adam Silver wants every single NBA fan at the beginning of the season to believe my team has a chance. Even though I live in Oklahoma City or I live in Indianapolis, my team has a chance because it's not going to be the Lakers versus the Lakers in the NBA Finals every year. It's not going to be the Knicks and the Celtics and the Lakers and the Warriors in the finals every year. Everyone has an equal chance. And the Pacers and the Thunder are two teams that have been almost better than anybody else, been preparing for this NBA with the tax aprons and the penalties, and they've been drafting well and developing well and picking up players here or there that make sense, that fit with what they're doing. And, remember the conversation last year, 2 years ago, was like, fucking the Celtics, man, all they do is shoot threes. It's so boring. They just shoot threes and threes and threes, and they're so boring, and they never say anything, and they don't have any personality, and they're just boring. Well, now we have two teams that do more than that. Do they shoot a lot of threes? Yes, they shoot a lot of threes. But that's not the crux of their offense. The crux of the Indiana offense is they move really fast. Everyone's moving all the time. It's Rick Carlisle's famous motion offense, just with high-octane fuel in it. And Tyrese Halliburton is a star, whether he's shooting, driving, passing, doing whatever. And on the other side, you have the Thunder, who have built the most terrifying defensive team you've ever seen, maybe. And on offense, they're like, hey, we're just going to ride on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who he drives, he kicks, he shoots, he does a little bit of everything, he helps everybody out. Assuming both of these teams stay healthy, it's going to be an incredible matchup because you have a team that plays really fast and never turns the ball over against a team that plays really fast on defense to create a lot of turnovers. So it's literally the immovable object versus the whatever that metaphor is. It's going to be strength on strength. You can try and force turnovers. We're going to try and not turn the ball over. We're both going to play really fast. And there's tons of really talented, really athletic, really young players who have loads of personality. This Thunder team has loads of personality. This Pacers team has loads of personality. You guys are probably going to get tired of it by the end of the finals, but like Tyrese Halliburton is a star. SGA is a star. These teams, I would wager to guess that one of them will, assuming they both make it to the finals, which they will, I will wager a guess that one or both of them will make it back to the finals within the next 2 to 3 years after this, because they're that good and they're built for the long term. They're not just built for now. But when it comes right down to it, like at the end of the day, what gets you into basketball? Basketball, like the sport, watching the sport and how entertaining it could be. And this is going to be some of the top tier level basketball that you can possibly find in the NBA. And it's really exciting to get it on this kind of a stage.
Yeah, the NBA finals are scheduled to start 1 week from tonight. That is June 5th. So
I hate that.
I don't know that you can move it up if the Pacers finish off the Knicks tonight.
I don't think so.
I don't think you can either. I think the final schedule is set. And I think that's the thing that might take away from the sport.
Agreed.
That's the thing that might do a little bit more damage, but it shouldn't be the markets. It shouldn't be the market. I think that kind of conversation is a little bit overrated. And might I say, amongst at least in my conversations with a lot of people that I know who are longtime Knicks fans, we don't like Stephen A. Smith representing us. I think that does more damage because people are like, ESPN is rooting for it because they see Stephen A. Smith playing this character up there.
Yeah.
He's a character. Everybody knows that is just a character. The same way, and does this stuff happen in other sports? Well, you bet it does.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they carry on all the time about the Dallas Cowboys. Like people say, well, the NFL doesn't rely on big market. No, but they rely on certain teams. They do rely on that. They rely on the Dallas Cowboys. There's a reason why when you have these nationally televised games, there's more Cowboys games, despite the fact this team hasn't won anything in 30 years. There's more Cowboys games than there are anybody else because it's about them. So what's that?
That hurt when you just had to point out that the Cowboys hadn't won anything in here. I'm literally wearing a Dak Prescott shirt right now.
Well, obviously I'm somebody that relates to this.
Yeah.
Don't take my Barcelona fandom. At least I have one team that wins a lot of things, but I have other teams that never win anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've never seen these teams win anything in my life. So, again, that's why I think it's a story. But man, I telling you, I got in the car. I was like, oh, it's already begun. It's already begun. And it's like, whatever the television. I just, the fascination that sports radio hosts have with television ratings, to me, like you're in the business of selling sports. Don't you understand what the actual job is? You're there to sell the sport. And you're sitting there worrying about who's not watching it rather than paying attention to those who are watching it. And it's like people I hear them get it wrong all the time when I was working there and in it. And now that I'm not in it, when I'm occasionally listening, and I just think these people do not know, they just don't even understand what it is they're talking about. They think ratings are some sort of scoreboard, and something could be the most watched event of any given night, and some dickhead will go, yeah, well, but Sunday Night Football. And you're like, okay, that's not what we're talking about. It's like saying, hey, that guy's a really good player. Well, he's not Tony Gwynn. You're like, yeah, okay, nobody is. Like Ben Roethlisberger, he's not Tom Brady. Colin Cowherd used to do that all the time. Oh, he's not Tom Brady. Yeah, nobody is.
Right.
But he had a pretty good life.
Yeah,
he's going to the Hall of Fame. So you know what I mean? Like if you always and can only be compared to the best thing, then what is the point of all this? So I don't know. I just think this league, its appeal on a domestic level, its appeal on an international level, this is. And I say this is somebody who's going to feel the sting of having a team that's going to get eliminated this late in the process. And I still would tell you, I think that losing to the better team is not a shameful experience. It's disappointing and it stings, and I hate it. I wish it would be better, but I also can recognize and be objective about it. Maybe me and a much younger version of myself would be like, man, fuck those Pacers. But fuck Pat McAfee, which still is kind of. But I don't know how you couldn't say, wow, Pacers and Thunder that might be really, really fun to watch. That's going to be fun to watch. I hope it is.
And the NBA, just like the NFL, is a copycat league, right? And so, like, I'm excited for this because I'm like, I've watched the Thunder and the Pacers do everything right. Be like, hey, we're going to invest in coaching. We're going to invest in scouting. We're going to invest in drafting and development. And then we'll use free agency and trades to just fill in these little things along the fringe as opposed to building, like, super teams that change every 2 years. And I'm like, this is the right thing to do. Like, coaching and development is what makes basketball great. And, I think, when you get to this finals, there's going to be a lot of chatter around the NBA about, hey, maybe we should do something more like what the Pacers are doing. The Thunder is a whole other thing. They just have a million draft picks. I think everyone's like, oh, we can't do that. But I think a lot of people are going to look at what the Pacers are doing and be like, how do we get ourselves a Tyrese Halliburton? I saw Bill Simmons did a list of every team that could have had Tyrese Halliburton, not just in the draft, but also the Kings, who traded him away, and the Sixers, who had a trade ready. I forget who it was for, but they could have traded for Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield, I think, at the time, and they rejected it because they didn't want Tyrese Halliburton. And so there's 8 NBA teams out there that could have had Tyrese Halliburton and just said no. And that's always a fun little undercurrent to play when everyone's trying to copy that guy. Very, very quick thing before we get out of here, because you said Ben Roethlisberger had a good life, and someone's going to criticize us for that. But
I understand he had his legal stuff.
He had his legal stuff,
and
the problem is, like, that can sometimes take away from just like fun sports moments, right? Like the other day, I saw a video of Ben Roethlisberger, not current Ben Roethlisberger, but when he was on the Steelers. It was an old video. And they're practicing, and they're doing a drill where the coaches are throwing pads at the quarterbacks while the quarterbacks are in the pocket, and they have to move away so the pad doesn't hit them, right? And the first quarterback goes, and he moves out, and eventually one of the pads like nicks him in the knee or something, and he's like, damn, okay, you got me. And the next guy comes up, and he's jumping out of the way, and I think he avoids all the pads, and he gets the pass off, and it was like, good job. And Ben Roethlisberger comes in. We've never had such an oaf play quarterback as Ben Roethlisberger, and he comes in and they start throwing the pads at him, and he doesn't move at all. And the pads are just bouncing off him, and everyone starts cracking up, and at the end he throws the pass, and he like looks around like, what? They can't tackle me anyway. Like, why am I going to get out of the way of it? And it's like, yeah, but I don't remember another quarterback who was just like, he could be sitting there in the middle of the pocket. You could have him completely lined up, and your chances of getting him down before he threw like a complete pass was almost nothing.
Yeah. I just am remembering a conversation that I would hear frequently from Coward. He'd be like, everybody thinks Ben's great, but you're not Tom Brady. I'm like, yeah, nobody is, guy.
Not everyone has to be Tom Brady. People have different goals, man.
Exactly. And he's probably still going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's a 2-time Super Bowl winner. Strictly talking about the on-field stuff. I know the off-field stuff was a massive, massive turnoff. And, deserves the criticism and scoring that he gets. But that being said, it was just an example, and the NBA should feel good. I mean, the NBA's got fucking $100 billion in the bank or whatever their television deal is. So, if I'm Adam Silver and I get asked about, small market teams, I'm like, have you seen these players? Like, we're doing okay. These are players that we absolutely should take the opportunity to showcase wherever it is that they're playing. So I think that'll be the case. All right, off day for the Padres. So on Friday, we'll do a little bit of Champions League. We'll get you set for SDFC and Austin Football Club. John, hopefully everybody's still on the road to recovery from the COVID cabana, and I feel like the vocal cords did much better than I would have anticipated. So I don't know. I guess I'm just a marvel. I'm just a physical marvel, being able to recover from all of these things that I have in my universe. All right, see you tomorrow.